Everyone, call to order. We have a quorum. Could we please have the roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor Sticks.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Here.
And remotely, Councilmember Lang.
I'm here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Deputy City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the November 26, 2024 meeting of the Ojai City Council. Could we have the pledge now, please?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Welcome, community. Please rise as you are able. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And before we approve the agenda, the Brown Act authorizes members of the City Council to participate in meetings remotely under certain conditions. Assembly Bill 2449, which was signed into law by Governor Newsom on September 13th, 2022, and is effective January 1st, 2023, permits council members to participate in city council meetings remotely when they can demonstrate just cause or emergency circumstances and when a quorum of the city council is physically present in the city. Councilmember Lang is participating in tonight's meeting remotely under AB 2449. Councilmember Lang is participating under the just cause circumstances exemption given for a contagious illness. Councilmember Lang will be participating in tonight's meeting using audio-visual technology. Per AB 2449, a council member participating remotely due to just cause circumstances requires council consent. I'll ask if there's any opposition to this request.
I think she should go to bed.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Lang, for being here and awake. All right, well, seeing none, we will proceed. Council members participating remotely under AB 2449 are required to disclose at the start of the meeting whether any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room at the remote location with the council member and the council member's relationship with the individual. Councilmember Lang, would you please confirm that you are the only person 18 years or older in the room you're teleconferencing from, or else disclose those persons over 18 present with you?
We can't hear you.
Can you turn your volume on, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm the only one. There's nobody else over 18 here.
Okay, thank you. As required by AB 2449, all votes taken tonight will be done by roll call. Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Councilmember Rule.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And before we move on, we have a report from our Assistant City Attorney, Taylor Anderson. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. So in the Friday, November 22nd, 2004 closed session, the City Council considered the request for defense and indemnity by Councilmember Rule in Byrne et al. V. Rule et al. The City Council first voted to determine, based on the advice of council, that the city does not have a legal obligation to defend or indemnify Councilmember Rule in Byrne et al. V. Rule et al. The ayes were Mayor Sticks, Mayor Pro Tem Whitman, and Councilmember Lang. The nays were Councilmember Rule and Councilmember Francina. The motion carried 3-2. The City Council did not consider or vote on whether or not to grant the defense and indemnity request. The closed session adjourned at 6:56 p.m. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson.
Excuse me, Mayor, I have a question. So that wasn't the motion. That was the result of the motion. Is there a reason why we wouldn't put the motion itself in here, only the result of the motion?
I'm sorry. You know what? I wasn't there. I'll have to check with Mount
so
and
but
outside
basically, the point is that was not the motion. there was a motion made, and the result of that motion was that mandatory mandatory defense was not required. So that was the result of the motion. So I want to know if the actual motion itself should be in there in the record.
I don't believe so, but I'm happy to look into it and get back to you.
Okay, and if you could get back to why you wouldn't have the actual motion in there as well, that would be great. Why it would be okay to have the result, but not the motion. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and no presentations or commission reports, so we will move on to public communication. And just a reminder to everyone, this is the time for members of the public to address the City Council on items of business that are not on the agenda. We can agendize these items for the future, and we appreciate your input and participation. And we value your enthusiasm. Please refrain from making side comments, though, and clapping. Please help model civility and respect even when we disagree, and make it about policy and not personality. So we'll begin with Randy Haney, then Mike Donahue, and then Larry Steingold.
Good evening, Council. I don't want to waste my minutes on that last discussion, but if you voted on something in a closed session, why didn't you report out the vote? But that's for another day. So, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for the meeting last week, the 19th. Obviously, we heard from the community, and as a direct result of that, I guess we had a Recreation and Parks Director resign. So first, I want to thank you guys for having the meeting. I'd like to thank the community for showing up and voicing their opinion. I'd like to thank Matt Davis for making the right decision. But we've still got a problem in that Recreation and Parks Department. That gentleman created a hostile work environment, and he created a hostile recreation environment. I know that he's resigned. I think it's going to be on February 15th is his last day. I'd like to maybe see the city manager put him on administrative leave, let him burn up his accrued sick time, his accrued vacation time, and pay him to stay home. I don't believe we need him on the recreation center for the next 2 months and 15 days. That's just my opinion. Along those lines, I think we need to start healing. We need to allow the recreation staff who's been harmed, personally harmed, and the parents group that have been harmed. They've been libeled, in my opinion, again, only. And I think the way to do that would be, while we remove Mr. Davis from the facility, that we appoint an interim director. And I would recommend Vicki Hollingsworth, someone who's highly respected in the community, someone that's highly respected in the Recreation and Parks Department, someone that has 30 plus years of experience, and I think can help heal that department. And more importantly is, as we give the city manager time to select a new director, you can fulfill your obligation as a council and get the Recreation and Parks Commission up and running. And we can take this thing that happened to our community and put it behind us. One other thing I'd like to speak to real quick is there's a couple other things on the agenda that I'm not going to stay for, but you all received your council package on protocol, your protocols handbook. I'm not sure if any of you have really read the handbook and read between the lines, but I think the most important thing it says is do no harm. So tonight, what's on the agenda that's before you, I highly suggest that you do no harm.
Thank you, Randy. Next, we have Mike Donahue, then Larry Steingold, then Robin Gerber.
Good evening. First, I want to say thank you for your service. And I also want to say that I have some news. It's very difficult to find consensus in Ojai. And I have. It's sometimes I almost think impossible to find consensus. But I went out to some neighbors recently and I asked them, to approve a message. And interesting enough, in just a short period of time, like 3 days, a quick little survey, no one said no. 100%, not a single person said no to this message that I sent you guys yesterday. Matter of fact, about 100 of them, 100 citizens said, yes, I endorse this message. And this message is about the homeless housing project, also known as Cabin Village. And in the message that you guys will see, and it's I've sent it all to you, I know at least one of you have read it, is some interesting information, some facts, some data, some numbers, some photos. And those 100 citizens are concerned. And they have 3 major concerns, like I do. One is a safety issue. Another is a liability issue. And a third is a quality of life issue. And in there, you'll see Dan Mendoza's data of 150 incidents, over 150 incidents this year alone, where service has been provided to our tent city, including things like guns discharged. These are his reports from authorities in Ventura County. Gun discharge, I think, twice, indecent exposure, battery, theft, narcotics use, quite a few things. So these 100 neighbors of the proposed site ask respectfully in this submission that you, with all the fresh data and all of the deep thinking that you've done, to consider and reconsider your previous approval of that location, look at alternatives. Please agendize this for maybe the next meeting, or definitely a meeting this year, and relook at that decision with the fresh information, the 100 people's opinions, and everything you heard from the Planning Commission as well a few weeks ago. Very colorful meeting, by the way. And we ask respectfully that you just do that. Consider and deep think on this subject, and ideally put it on the agenda and decide on a new location. And I'm ahead of time. That's all I have to say.
May I make a comment, Mayor?
Thank you, Mike.
I think it's important for the audience listening here tonight and also on television. The incidents, first of all, Chief Trina is not here to explain those incidents, but it's my understanding that that did not occur in the Cabin Village. It occurred when people were, a long time ago, when people were camping, and those people have been removed. I cannot emphasize enough that everyone in the Cabin Village signs an agreement to be a good neighbor. So I don't want to leave the impression that we have, a criminal element living in the Cabin Village. That's not the case. No more than any neighborhood may have some unsavory characters.
That I found was that all the people who signed this are massively compassionate to the homeless problem and for doing something for these people. So
I was
Yes,
just
we can
counsel.
Thank you.
counsel-
We can't thank you very
yes,
much.
thank you for reading my mind,
I
Mayor.
just wanted
Thank
to
you.
make an important correction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Next we have Robin Gerber, then Larry Steingold, then Renee Roth.
Hi, I'm Robin Gerber, resident of Ojai. First, let me say thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Francina, for your service. However much we may have disagreed, which was kind of a lot. Okay. But nevertheless, I do appreciate your public service and the public service of everyone on the council. And let me just say that on this issue of indemnification, that the precedent you're setting, I hope, is being considered. First of all, that hearing shouldn't have been closed. That's another issue. But not to indemnify a member of this council when they were clearly doing their work as a council member is a terrible precedent for both you and anyone else considering coming onto the council. So it sounds like this is still not resolved, but I do hope it gets resolved in a way that reassures those who might want to do public service that they will not have to pay dearly for doing public service. I really got up, though, to talk about something else. Under the tenure of the unfortunate Mr. Marcus, was that his name? How quickly we forget. Davis. Under his tenure, at least 2 employees, perhaps more, were dismissed. And that is a problem. I was an employment attorney for a long time. I don't know these people. They happen to be sitting in front of me at the first meeting. They were very long-time employees, one of them over 20-year employee of the Recreation Department. To be dismissed like that by someone who himself was clearly not capable of doing the job is wrong, and you need to right that wrong. Please cut me off if they've been reinstated, which really is what should happen. Go ahead, Mr. Harvey.
Through the mayor. First of all, I would just say it's inappropriate to discuss personnel actions here at the council meeting during public comment. But just for some clarification, I don't wish to create a dialogue, but that's not correct. Those employees were not both Mr. Davis's employees, and so there's some misunderstanding about the facts. But beyond that, that's not something we're here to talk about, or the circumstances. Every public employee, especially a full-time employee beyond probation, has property rights in their job, and they're afforded those rights through a Skelly proceeding if the opportunity arises. So we're aware of the rules and the regulations and the laws, and we afford everybody those.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. I'm not sure that exactly answers my concern. My understanding is they did work for the Recreation Department. Is that correct? They did not work for the Recreation Department?
Again, I'm not going to engage in dialogue, but one of the employees was not a Recreation Department employee.
I see. Well, if any of them were, then it needs to be revisited. They don't have a union to represent them. Maybe one of you, Susie, you're going to have some time. Maybe you can take this up as your cause. But it's very distressing that we had this situation at the rec department, and the wreckage left behind includes the human wreckage of at least apparently one person, if not more than one, who was working in that department. So I just hope you will give that your attention. And it's true, I don't have all of the facts, so I appreciate kind of having them. At any rate, I hope that you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next, we have Larry Steingold, then Renee Roth, and then Ames.
Thank you all for your service. Thank you for the rain. Unfortunately, I need a garbage bag on my foot. Ditto for Mr. Haney for Park and Rec, though, and for healing. I do believe we need a post-mortem as to who, why, what, and how this happened. It didn't happen in a vacuum. There was no committee formed. If the commission was in place, it probably wouldn't have happened. Regarding the encampment, I'd like to be around when they do the phase 1 environmental assessment, because I do believe it will be contaminated and you will have to move it. Regarding security, Commissioner Francina said it was no different than any other part of the community. So why do they need 24-hour security? If it's like anywhere else, I don't see any other apartment complex in the city having a security guard. So in that matter, that's a question. And thank you.
May I make a correction?
Thank you, Larry.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry. I think you're kind of misinterpreting what I said. I said that any neighborhood could have, we don't know,
Right.
some unsavory character.
Right.
But the reason we have the security is because that was requested by the neighbors. And it's just, you know, it feels like it's been turned around that to say that, you know, I think it's good to have the security. Everybody feels better.
So,
Okay, thank you.
So-
We're gonna move
for on the cabin
Yep.
village, it will come back to council at another
Yeah,
time
yeah.
where these kinds of questions can be answered. Not on the agenda tonight, though.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Renee Roth. Oh. Good point.
I know, ask Larry. We should have, again, a post-mortem to just move it forward and forget everything. I mean, it happened for a reason. I mean, it just didn't happen in a vacuum. All right, so it would be nice to know so that it doesn't happen again, so that commissioners and commissions and committees and management are all on the same book and page. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Renee Roth and then Ames.
Good evening, members of the council. This is a rough thing for me to have to say. But Betsy Sticks, I need to say that I hold you personally responsible for what happened in the Park and Rec department and all of those kids coming here begging for a program again. I hold you personally responsible for the mismanagement of that whole thing. It started out in a closed meeting, another closed meeting, Betsy Sticks, where there was a liability issue. And it ended up with kids begging for their program to be reinstated and a Park and Rec manager who had to resign from his post. I personally hold you responsible for the mismanagement of that whole effort. Personally, you. I also hold you personally responsible for the lawfare environment that has set Leslie Rule up to not be indemnified because your friend, Sabrina Vences, can represent all of the plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the city because she disclosed some things in a public-private meeting that shouldn't been private. That is not okay, Betsy. More lawfare that you have established the precedent for, and more people threatening lawsuits to try to shut down the homeless, the Tent City project. This is on your neck, Betsy. This is your doing. I personally do not respect somebody who cannot at least give clear guidance to the city manager about how and when we should be talking to our department heads and how and when the parents can have a say with the department heads who he works for.
Pardon me. Point of
Yes,
order.
sir. Sure.
I think, this council has adopted a code of conduct fairly recently, and in that code of conduct, we agreed as a body, I'm not a council member, but the council approved it, that we'd focus, on criticizing policies, programs, practices, procedures, processes, and not people. And I think that, we do that so that we can keep an environment of civility and decorum, and so that people feel comfortable speaking here and also being up here, because it does take a lot to be up here. And I just don't think it's reasonable that these statements and comments can be directed at something that happened, which is fine. And, certainly that's part of why we're here, but I don't think we need to demonize a person or a body. And I don't think it's reasonable that, we should have to endure this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. I would hope at some point you can have an open and public discussion with the citizens of Ojai about many areas of the misunderstanding of what happened with the Park and Rec department. You have been closed-lipped and tight-lipped and not said anything. I don't want any more lawsuits. I really don't. I want us to have decorum and speak respectfully, but we have to be invited to the table to be able to speak. We have to be able to invited to a conversation so we can speak.
Thank you, Renee. And I've offered many times to go out with coffee for you, so that's still on the table. And just a reminder, according to Rosenberg's rules, which we adopted a code of conduct, we focus on policy and not personality. So thank you very much. Next we have Ames.
Good evening, everyone. So that's powerful, complex issue. And another powerful, complex issue is Ojai Tent Town and the Cabin Village. And I wanted to speak to that a little bit. And I'll just go ahead and respond to the discussion about security. So one of the things I pointed out at the Planning Commission meeting is that when you look at those more than 100 complaints from 2024, it's important to look at that data and see what was pre-July and what was post-July, because the city put into effect the resident steward model in order to support community integration and structure and accountability and enhance these agreements. And they also brought in security. And when I first got here in July, it was really, really intense. And there was this thought of, gosh, I wish there had been security earlier. I was hearing from a lot of the residents who lived here at Ojai Tent Town that they hadn't felt safe. And so I'm really appreciative that the city brought in the security and they brought in more structure. And so it's good to look at that data post-July and pre-July to see what kind of impact that made. That's a very, outcomes-driven approach, data-driven approach, and I really support that. In terms of the security, when I think what happens, and I've worked with a lot of encampments and I understand the stabilization process that occurs. And so what we did here in Ojai is a stabilization first model. There's housing first models, and really this is a stabilization first, because instead of saying we're going to disperse this encampment, we're going to actually stabilize folks here, get them connected with services and support their transition, which is groundbreaking. And the city of Ojai and this whole town should take great pride in that. And I'm so thankful for that. When the security first came here, it was a different situation, and those gun things that came off and a lot of the things that were said in that report or that man's testimony today, that was pre-July, but it wasn't an actual gun. It was like a BB gun or something like that. But the security process that happens is you start off needing a lot of security or a certain type, and then it becomes about enforcing accountability and agreements. And so you know what the number one thing that our security does today? You'd probably like this in your neighborhood. If someone's making too much noise past quiet hours, someone texts Secure All goes to their tent. They also protect us from people outside of the community, believe it or not. And so I just wanted to give thanks to this program right before Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ames. Any comments online, Weston? Yeah, Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was walking through the Arbolada last week and I got hit with a pellet gun. Yeah, some guy in the Arbolada running along his fence line shooting. And so just want you to know. And he hit me. And so there we go. Just to say that, anything can happen anywhere. And there we go. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
I know. I was sorry to get it. I told him not to shoot my dog, and he shot me.
Any comments online, Weston?
Yes. No raised hands, Mayor. We'll give our Zoom participants the opportunity to raise their hand for general public comment. We'll give them a last call to raise your hand, and we will move on, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Mayor. Roll call. Councilmember Rule.
Yes.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our discussion item. Item number 2, Libby Bowl Management and Operating Agreement with Ojai Valley Music, LLC. And we have a staff report.
We do. We'll have a brief staff report. Thank you, Mayor. You'll hear from me. You also will hear from Ms. Anderson, perhaps our Assistant City Attorney. You won't hear from Ms. Rivera. She is on scheduled vacation today. But and actually, we also have all 3 members, or 2? 3. Okay, good, great. We've got 3 members, all 3 members of Ojai Valley Music here with us as well, and I'm sure they'd like to speak if you wanted to afford them the opportunity. But in a nutshell, As council will recall, the city has enjoyed concert promotion programming through Sterling Venue Ventures for the past 8 years. We're coming up on that in December. The city made a decision earlier this year to go out for RFP and offer the council the option of either continuing with Sterling or going with a recommendation from the RFP process. In October, council was given that choice and decided to go with Ojai Valley Music and directed staff to come back with a negotiated contract. That's what we're here with tonight. There's a lengthy contract attached to this agenda report. Ms. Anderson and Rivera and I, along with Ojai Valley Music, have endeavored to put together a comprehensive contract, one that addresses the concerns raised by council and the requests, one that leaves the community in good condition, and one that is fair and reasonable to Ojai Valley Music so that they may have a chance, a reasonable chance, a good chance at success in concert programming. So we're proposing a 4-year agreement with the potential for 2 options for 4-year extensions. A lot of the other provisions are similar to what you may recall from prior agreements with Sterling Venue Ventures. We haven't completely recreated the model here. I would call out one change that is a little bit different. We do have a 2-tiered system for booking with a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 category. In discussions with Ojai Valley Music, we felt that was probably a better way to structure the year rather than the prior arrangement, which was a little goofy and candidly kind of put the city at a disadvantage if we wanted to have events. So anyway, I'd be happy to go through any of the provisions in here. I know that you have all read the contract. And again, we have representatives from Ojai Valley Music here. And I want to thank Ms. Anderson for all the work that she did because it is her work that we're benefiting from this evening. So with that, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
I have questions, but I'd like to wait till after public comment.
Okay. All right, we will move on to public comment then. First, we have Larry Steingold, then William Wyrick, and then Andy Gilman.
Thank you, Larry Steingold. What you have here, OVM, you have 3 experts in the music business. They know their business. What you have here is you have 2 attorneys and a city manager who are not experts in the music business. I gather that, okay? They're experts in what they do, okay? Just like you're experts in your business. Not every business. I was in the real estate business. I don't know music. I would like to see a 6-month review. I would like to see the city have expert witnesses or expert advisors who are also in the music business, who know their business. I would like to see a COLA, which is an increase every year in the money, and a negotiated one going forward so that everybody knows what the $2,500 or $3,000 or whatever it is they're going to get, the city's going to get from now until 12 years from now, so that we don't have to renegotiate the wheel every single time. But the city does not have music expert agreement readers. We don't have expert attorneys who are experts in the music business. They do, that's their business. So they know what should go in the document. They know what should not go in the document. Our attorneys are very good at what they do. They don't know what's lacking. Have they talked to anybody else in the music business? Have they talked to anyone? Have they had the leases agreements looked at? But more importantly, a 6-month review with the police department and traffic and planning and everybody else. Not a 1-year look back, but a 6-month look back, because it takes 2 years because they have to make they have to make contracts with musicians and what have you a year ahead. So it wouldn't be fair to them, and it wouldn't be fair to us to have a 1 year, but a 6-month would be good. I mean, so the document, it may be good. I have no idea, but it's not my business, nor is it your business, nor is it our attorney's business. So I would advise you, because we don't want errors or omissions to be part of the legal agreement. We don't want to miss something. We don't want to have our attorneys miss something that should be self-evident to people in the business. That's why I would advise that you either establish, we have lots of experts in the city who are in the business. Half the city's in the business, right? And I'm sure a lot of them would be more than happy to review it and bring in comments. Some of them may be deal killers, some of them may be helpful, or not, but at least you get advisement. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you, Larry. Yep.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Could you, first of all, are you suggesting that before we,
Mr. City Manager? Just
Yeah, I'm sorry. Councilmember Francina, I might recommend that you allow all the public to make comment before asking questions.
Okay, but could I just ask what he meant
I-
by a 6-month review?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. I'm sorry. I just didn't understand what he said about 6 months versus 1 year.
Well, right now, there's no review. You can terminate the agreement, from what I've read, at any point during the agreement, or not. I'm not sure. But to have a review of the activities, the problem,
I understand
right?
that.
Or a year agreement. If you have it every year, you now kick it into the second year because they have contracts for musicians
Okay.
a year from now.
I got it.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have William Wyrick, then Andy Gilman, and then Randy Haney.
Evening, Council. It's real healthy to have RFPs. By the way, I think we're overdue for a legal services RFP. It's been 10 years. So I hope that's something to look at going forward. So it's healthy to have RFPs periodically, every few years. And when they occur, I think in this situation, it has resulted in a very talented, qualified, and tremendous high potential engagement with Ojai Valley Music LLC. Very impressed with every person part of this process. The point I want to make, though, is that I have 30 plus years in reviewing contracts of all kinds in private contracts, public contract, agency contracts, public-private ventures, etc. God only knows how many I reviewed over 30-something years. And you should take proper time to make sure you have vetting outside the bubble, outside the staff bubble. We just had a situation where staff bubble review led to the outrage of the gymnastics situation. Learn from that experience, and at least I would urge you for 2 weeks until December 10th, because time is of the essence, I understand that, to allow some structured public input into this agreement, and I'm going to go over just a couple things that are very important. One, already alluded to. This contract builds in less money per year in real terms compensation for the city if you don't have a COLA, a cost of living adjustment, which nobody writes contracts without COLAs anymore. Number two, your document's not complete. In the packet, it refers to Exhibit B. Exhibits referred to in leases as part of the contract. It was not part of the packet. Exhibit B is blank when I tried printing it out. So you don't have the complete contract. Number three, there's language in here unprecedented. Appoints OVM as the manager and operator of the amphitheater. That's a conclusive statement. There is some internal contradiction to other definitions. At one point, it's referred to as a personal services contract, then an independent contract, then as a appointment as manager. These are things that need to be dealt with, because what I want, and I urge you to provide some time for further vetting here, is the best possible foundation with these wonderful people, because a strong foundation is what leads to the best mutual outcome between the city and the contractees. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have Andy Gilman and then Randy Haney.
Good evening, council and staff. I support this contract, and just a couple of minor points. it looks like there's a tiny typo on page 2-1. The agreement term January 1, 2024 should be 2025. Small, tiny thing. Second, it looks like on page 2-4, there's a list of, oh, sorry, it's 2-4 to 2-5. There's a list of legacy events. One, it looks like it's an old list. Lavender Festival, for example, is one. And it looks like at least the Ojai Storytelling Festival, which is a legacy event, isn't on there. So we might just look at the most current list and make sure that we have everything there so that nothing's omitted. That's something that could easily be done, but maybe this was pulled from possibly the Sterling contract from 8 years ago. So the Ojai Storytelling Festival would be the last full weekend of October, for example. And then another small point, the website that's brought up on page 2-22, it seems to me there's a really interesting opportunity here because a common complaint is people don't know where to buy.
Excuse me, I
Okay.
can't find it.
Okay. I believe it's page 2-22, and it says Bowl website number 8. It's actually not so specific about that, but I was going to bring up a general opportunity, which is
Found it.
it's hard for people to know what shows are playing when. Yeah, that's a general problem. So this could be a really interesting time to say whoever's going to manage that website, that it either could be something separate. If it's part of the city, that's fine. But it's a time to revamp that to make something more interesting. So I would build that into the possibilities. And that kind of leads into this other piece, which is something that we had talked about literally like in 2011, which was some signage that would be Ojai standard, something that we would like, that's somewhere on the pergola maybe, or somewhere that talks about the upcoming shows. I don't know what that looks like, but it keeps coming up. We keep talking about it, but it'd be maybe neat for this council to think about something like that going forward to announce the upcoming shows. And then in conclusion, I would support what Larry Steingold brought up, and also Bill Wyrick. Since it's such a big deal and a big contract and so important to the city, I would suggest that we come back in 6 months, just look it over carefully, get a presentation by the vendor. How's it going? Any adjustments necessary? It seems like a easy thing to do and something we would like to hear if any adjustments do need to be made, because it is so important. But I do support it, and I think it's a great opportunity for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we have Randy Haney.
So I'm sorry I'm back, but I ran out of time. Last thing I left you with was what? Obviously you didn't hear it. Do no harm. So just a quick take on what I'm hearing. There's some other things that I think we could do as a community. There's nothing wrong with writing 4 consecutive one-year contracts with a review period at the end of the first year, the second year, the third, and the fourth. We kind of had the same thing with Sterling. The other thing is, it seems to me that we are giving this group one of our most prestigious community sites in the community. We're giving them Libby Bowl. That's ours. That's the community's. We're giving them, partially in the contract, there are 26 dates. And technically, there's 26 other dates that we used to manage. I think the city manager has actually asked these gentlemen to be the managers of Libby Bowl and of that facility. So if we're going to do that, why don't we charge for that? Why are we giving away the store at $2,500 per event? Why don't we just do an agreed upon number? Why don't we take the $65,000 that they would be getting if they did 26 events at $2,500 an event, and why don't we just charge them the same thing for the other 26 weeks? Let's have them pay us $130,000 to manage our bowl and to use our bowl and to use our facility as they deem fit, because that's what you're doing. You're giving away the store in this contract. You're giving it to them to be the managers of that site. If you're not, say so. City manager, if you're not, say so. But that's what this agreement reads. We're going to give you 26 dates. And by the way, we have some other events that we've had, historical events in the past, but also you can manage the other open dates for us. We'd appreciate that, because that's not what we do as a community. We don't have that skill set. I get that. But why give away the store? Charge them for it. Then review it on an annual basis. Doesn't take much to think this through. It could be any number you want it to be. It could be any number you want to negotiate with them with. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to give them 52 weeks of that facility to do as they please, except for historical events, you're doing something wrong and you're doing harm.
Thank you, Randy. Any comments online, Weston?
No, Mayor, we have no raised hands. And Zoom participants, I'm speaking to you. We are on item number 2 on this agenda. Mayor, we'll move on from Zoom with no raised hands, and we'll take Bill Miley. Mr. Miley, would you like to come up now?
Hello. I only have one point. On the first page, it says 10 to 26 events, but it doesn't say what period of time. Conceivably, it intends to mean per year, but it doesn't say that. You might want to make sure that it's per year. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. No comments online? All right, we will move on to discussion. Who would like to begin?
Can I ask a question?
Questions, yes.
Can we make adjustments in this contract after we hash out and we agree on it? How does that work? Does the can we bring, if we realize that we didn't catch something or something isn't going right, how does it work? How does it come back to the council, and they can, and we retain the right to make adjustments?
Sure, and this is probably a question that I might defer a little bit to the assistant city attorney, but a contract's an agreement between two parties.
Uh-huh.
And, if you find that there is an issue or an error, the first thing would be to go to the other party to present, your findings. And if there's a mutual desire to address the issue, then it would be appropriate to come back to the council. However, it can't just be once you have a bound agreement. I know you know this. One side can unilaterally decide something. But that's why also we're here this evening. If there are things that the council wants to change, we certainly could. I would tell you that a lot of the things that we heard during public comment were items that were carried over from the Sterling contract. They were also are currently the designated manager of the bowl according to the agreement we have that with them now. It's the same type of arrangement. And things like CPI, yes, you could put some type of thing like that in there, but I will tell you what you probably may also know: the concert industry increasingly is becoming an industry of very thin margins, and it's not necessarily the big money maker that it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And there are a lot of artists that don't tour or announce tours and cancel their tours because it's hard to make it so that you can break even. The $2,500 amount is the same amount that Sterling was, right? You're aware of that. So, and we do have representatives from Ojai Valley Music here that can certainly answer questions as well. But I'd also point out that Christy, who was very involved in putting this together, has been our bowl manager. So we do have that person on the city side that knows what's involved with interacting with the concert promotion side of things and the delivery of the event. That's something that she brings to the table and will continue to.
I have another question. Okay. My other question is this. I remember that you and I and Ryan Blatz met in August, and we were concerned that if we didn't renew the Sterling contract as soon as possible, that there would be lapses in the schedule. And I remember being assured that we would still be able to fill the schedule at this late hour. And so my other question is, if we, as a council, decide after we mull all of this over and discuss that we would like, ideally, there is I like the suggestion of having other outside, unbiased, knowledgeable people review this before we go to the final, document. And if there's a 2-week, how much does a 2-week delay play in filling up the schedule?
Well,
I know
it's
we're so
not
late
so
already.
a couple things. So yes, Lance Sterling would be able to, if the council decided to not move forward. Lance has offered that he could, book the next season for the city. He did offer that. However, that's not council's direction at this point. Council's direction is to negotiate an agreement with OVM. And when you negotiate in good faith, I would caution council taking a flyer and asking some other third party to then review this, because this has been in good faith negotiated between the city and OVM. You'd have to have OVM obviously at the table. These are terms that they felt, that they could abide by. These are terms that we felt were acceptable to the city. So I don't. Then the determination is, who is this subject matter expert that you're going to want to review it? Do we do an RFP for music industry experts to come forward, or are we, what does that look like? I mean, that's.
Yeah,
I will just
answer that right now, but there could be.
I will. Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah,
I mean, there was some discussion from individuals that have experience in negotiating contracts. Well, that's also what the city manager and the city attorney do as part of their job, and we have done for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Who would like to speak next? No, it's a council member. Actually,
aren't we going to have the
you have Ojai Valley Music representatives here. If you'd
Okay,
like for
do you
them
want to come on
speak,
up?
you
I'd
certainly
like to
could.
hear from
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Dawn.
Yeah.
Just listening to the room, and getting the feedback.
David, could you just speak
sorry.
to them?
I'm
Yeah,
still a
thank
little-
you. So people in TV land can
I'm
hear
not
you.
really the one
Thank
to be
you.
on stage. As you know, I like to kind of be behind the curtain a little bit. But listening to the room and the feedback, I mean, we're fine with a review. I think a year would be better, because 6 months, we haven't started yet. It's June.
Yeah.
So a year, like, we have dates, we're moving, things are happening, and we can totally look at it all over, and talk about it, see how we're doing, make improvements where we need to. Also, the other thing, just again, the feedback, the positive feedback is we're fine with maybe an increase every year on the amount that we have the 2,500, which was what Sterling has been paying for 8 years as an out-of-town promoter. We're here, we're devoted, we're passionate. And, I think it's fair. I think it's a fair fee, but we're happy to maybe increase. Maybe it's a 3% increase every year, or we can talk about that at the year review, just so it's fair. I mean, we're not trying to just, take advantage of anyone, and we want it to be balanced with not only the city, because it's a partnership, but also the community and the people that are, outspoken about and passionate on their end about the contract. So I'm a little nervous up here. So those are my 2 points. I think it's a fair contract. We worked hard with the city back and forth on a lot of items in there. It's really the city's contract. I mean, it's our contract, but we're just here and happy to do it. And we don't have any issues with it. We don't feel like we're getting away with anything. I mean, it's, we're the ones that are really putting the money down to make this bowl happen and to bring it to the community.
and it is for the community. So, and it is the city's bowl, but we respectfully appreciate the opportunity to manage it and bring it to life, just like we talked about a month ago, especially with all the people that were supporting us and their feelings. I mean, we're representing them. You know, we're representing the community. We believe in what we're doing, and politics are not our thing, as you know. I've said it before. Again, I do respect people's opinions and how they see it, but you know, we're open to any adjustments that you all feel necessary to make this happen, so we can get to work. So, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
I would like to note something.
Yes.
In the contract right now, both of the parties have the option 60 days before the first anniversary of the contract to meet and confer and request a meet and confer to talk about the terms of the agreement and to work through any issues. It sounds like some of what council and the community may be talking about is a report back to council on how things are going. So if we could have clarity on what you're looking for on this 1-year review, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you. Martin, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to make a clarification or two. Number one, there was some allusion to us controlling the bowl for the entire year. That is absolutely not the case. If you look at the agreement, if you read the agreement carefully and thoroughly, you can see that there's half the year that is pretty much the exact functioning in the exact same way as it has before, with anyone from the community or from without the community can fill out an application and, if approved, use the bowl. We do have a right of refusal on that, but for all intents and purposes, that's not going to happen during that time, the tier 2. Also, there is the ability for the city at any time, just as with any contract they enter into, to exit the contract, as it is our right also to exit the contract with due notice. So it's not like we're binding the city here to something that they can't get out of if they don't like it. And I will say, if we can't do this now, we go into because we were planning on sending out offers tomorrow for our first slate of acts. If we can't do this now, we go into the holidays. We go into Thanksgiving. As you know, the business most businesses close, but especially our business closes right after Thanksgiving, moving into the Christmas season. And so if we wait until December 10th, our hands are tied on sending out offers until the middle of January when people get back in our business. So we'll have to live with that, but I would not counsel it. I think that's pretty much everything.
Thank you, Martin.
Sure.
All right, Councilmember Rule.
So I just wanted to speak to a couple of points. I agree with the city manager and also have faith in our assistant city attorney that this contract is solid. I think it was probably negotiated. I'm not a contracts attorney, but from what I can tell, it's pretty solid, and it is a rollover, a good part of from Sterling. I would support, and I don't know, exactly the difference between the review 60 days before the year anniversary, but I would support a year review. I think it benefits everybody to sit down and talk about what's working, what's not working for the vendors, for the city, for the producers of the shows. That seems to me to be something everyone would want, as David said. Why wouldn't you? And the tier 1 and the tier 2, I'm fine with first right of refusal. I believe this to be people acting in absolute good faith as a love for the community. And I hope that that is true. It certainly feels true. In which case, we are doubly blessed, in my opinion. And so I would support moving forward with this. We need the marquee. We need the something somewhere saying what the show is. But I think that those are really my only issues. The 6-month review, you barely get started. You really need a little bit of time and a little bit under your belt, experience under your belt to figure out what's working and what's not, as does the city. So I am going to make a motion that we approve this contract. There are, I think that, what do you call it? Expectant Mayor Gilman made a few reasonable points and corrections. I think that we can do that. And so I don't see anything that would stop the movement forward of this. I believe everybody negotiated in good faith. I believe it's a rollover of what we have. We can talk in a year and see how much money you guys made, and if you want to kick us some, or maybe you don't. So, whatever. Larry, don't look at me like that. So anyway, I have a motion on the table for that we approve this contract.
Okay.
I'll
Is there a
second
second?
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Councilmember.
I'll second it.
Okay. Would you like to speak, Councilmember Lang?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to just say a couple of things. First of all, I agree with what Councilmember Rule said about, I think, that David and Martin, the whole team at OVM is really doing this for the community. And I think there needs to be a bigger conversation next year at some point about what do we want the Libby Bowl to be? Like, what are the opportunities there for the community, separate from this collaboration, from this partnership? Because I think that it can be a place where people are gathered together and where the community comes together. We've already seen that so many times. In terms of this contract, though, I also actually, Andy Gilman, I noted the same thing about the website. I had that marked as something that would be great for us to have things posted either through the city, or that we could somehow be in collaboration with letting everybody know what's coming. I really trust all of the creative marketing minds of OVM. So, but I think there would be opportunities for us as a city to also be involved and have a landing page at least that shows what concerts are coming up. And then I also liked a few things about this that were notable, that we had mentioned specifically when we were in conversations. And I think, Taylor, I want to thank you for including the bike ballet and the local vendors, focusing on local vendors. I mean, this contract has so many components that really speak to the vision that we had when we decided to accept the RFP and move forward with this. And that vision was bringing the entertainment at Libby Bowl back into the community. And I really see that interspersed throughout this whole contract. So I'm very much in supportive of this. I want to thank, I also want to thank, just the Ben and Taylor for helping to move this forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Lang. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I guess first I want to see if Assistant Attorney Anderson would like to gild the rose a little bit on the idea that you went thoroughly through the former contract and the current contract. It's been kind of represented that happened, but is there anything new or different that we should be aware of that isn't kind of a continuation of what we've done in the past?
Yeah, so I think the skeleton of this, the best way to put it is the skeleton of this agreement honors what the city had done with Sterling and then built on it. I think Councilmember Lang described the thoughtfulness that Ben and I really put into the agreement of the community focus that we were trying to capture. It was something that was in the RFP. we've both gone through this with a fine-tooth comb and with Christy to make sure that we were building something that was respectful of the community, continue the opportunity for the community to be able to use the bowl while still having a robust schedule and allowing for OVM to really attract really great talent and have a great lineup, right? And afford them that opportunity. This agreement is significantly more protective of the city. It considers things that I think we didn't have to consider with Sterling during the time of his operation, but things like advertising, control of the bowl, access for city staff. There are different types of termination in the agreement to allow the parties space to exit if it's necessary. We're doing a different model in the way that we're dividing up the year. So we have a clause in there that if for some reason that's problematic, right, that we can reopen it and reconsider it, because the priority for all of us, and I can tell you in my multiple conversations with Ojai Valley Music, is the community is a huge part of this contract. They're a silent partner here. And so, yeah, there has been a lot of thought and effort that has gone into this to make sure that we are doing the best thing for the city, but affording them the opportunity to do something great and the flexibility. Thank you.
Can I just build on that a little bit? I mean, I think that the work that, just answering your question about what's significantly different to me, when I look at the challenge system in the tier 1 and the tier 2 and how that's going to operate. That was a problem with the last agreement. It was always a little unclear.
Mm-hmm.
We went round and round. Right, exactly. So that I think is going to be very helpful for the city and also for OVM.
Yeah, so the way that that's going to work is they'll get priority between, I believe it's May.
Right. Tier 1 is May 1st through October 31st.
Yeah, and then the city will get priority during
November 1st through April.
Thank you.
30th.
So the community can still have events during that time, but that will allow them the flexibility to have talent, acknowledging that that season is a more productive season for people to come to travel to Ojai. The weather is better, but we're still preserving the opportunity for the community to have the legacy events. The legacy events that are reflected in this agreement are the ones that we put in the RFP, and they're the same legacy events that we had in the Sterling agreement as well. OVM does have a right of refusal during, looking for the language now, during tier 2. There is a period though when the dates are released back to the city. So within 60 days of the event,
right,
the city can advertise those dates. We have one final, hey, OVM, do you have anybody booked? We have somebody from the community that wants to use the space. They've got 48 hours to get back to us, which is a very short window to give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, so that we can allow the community events to move forward. But still, if they're negotiating something during their tier 1 time, we want to afford them the ability to host that event.
Okay, so there's been discussion about the 1-year review, and so is that something that's already provided for in the contract, or is that something that we would have to add? And the OVN seems to be willing and interested, so if that's the case, how would that work mechanically in terms of a review, and how does that impact I think is kind of set up as a 4-year long agreement? So how does a 1-year review impact the 4-year term of the agreement?
So right now what it says is, upon written request of either party, the parties shall meet and confer within 60 days after the first anniversary date of this agreement to discuss the need for potential modification. So what council could give us direction is to make it automatic instead of at the request of the parties. We could definitely do that.
And the language.
Let's take turns. Are you finished, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I do have one more point, and that is the promoter actually, made what I thought was a fairly generous offer to have a percentage increase. What I'd like to see us do, and I don't know how this would work mechanically, but I'd like to see us do it kind of on an incentive success based, so if during the first year promoters achieved, I don't know what the right factor to look at, but percentage of seats filled for the bowl, or if there's a profit factor, to say only if something transpires does this boost in our income occur. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. Could I ask a clarifying question about that? Perhaps as a thought, I think the first year is going to be time for them to get their sea legs. And I think maybe what might be good is during that 1 year review period, we see, what worked, what didn't work. And then at that time, that might be the appropriate moment to put in some type of incentive. But let's say, for instance, and I'm not suggesting this is going to happen, but, there's not a lot of interest in the shows or whatever, it would be inappropriate. I think we just really need to let them, it's going to take them a season to totally get where I think they need to be.
I'm mindful of your comment that the margins are narrow.
Yeah.
So I would only want to, look at that kind of kicker.
Yeah.
If, oh boy, we did well on the margins, and therefore, so I'm fine with that being a topic to discuss at the.
Because we won't know the data, because I think we it's a good point. I mean, at that point we can say, all right, these are the number of seats, that were not filled.
I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to be bound to a 4-year term where we don't get that, but I also don't want to demand that without it having.
Can we ask them?
Yeah.
So what you could.
Martin?
If I can make a proposal along those lines, we can agree to, after the first $150,000 net, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. After the first $150,000 net on an annual basis, 10% then goes above that towards of the net towards there's a Libby operating fund or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Sharks?
Yeah, I think.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Are you finished, Mayor Pro Tem? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make a comment, and then you can have a turn.
But it relates to this, so
can
you can make an exception? Because I didn't understand something Taylor said.
Yeah.
We don't have to
Go ahead.
be so, rigid.
Taking turns? Go ahead.
Well, you agreed to be rigid.
I have other comments, but it's totally unrelated to this. My question is, I thought I heard you say that it's 60. The review is 60 days after the first year.
Yeah, within 60 days after the first year.
Does the council want to be bound to that? If there's a reason to do it sooner, can we have that option?
So I think what we're saying is that we don't think sooner would be reasonable, because they need time and space to be able to book the event.
Yeah.
So after the first year of the agreement, I think we both feel quite strongly that would be an appropriate time to renegotiate the contract and speak with them about the terms.
Okay, and if
then hold on.
Yeah. Not renegotiate the entire contract.
Right,
I spoke too broadly.
That's not what we're proposing.
Resolve any concerns that may have come up in the initial
Celebrate
year.
successes.
Yes.
Identify areas where you might need to tune up.
Yes.
And they have the option of coming back to the council anytime with a request to review something, right? They can, even during public comment, they can.
The meet and confer has to.
Yeah, so we would have to negotiate with them in good faith, but if there were concerns, it is something that could come back to council. We would likely try and resolve those concerns without council intervention to the extent possible.
Yes, thank you. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Well, first I'd like to thank my council members, and I agree with your comments. I really appreciate your diligence in diving into the details. I would like to thank Martin and Marco and David for bringing this forward and wanting to do something really wonderful for our community. And it's wonderful that you all three live here. Those of us who've been to the Playhouse already, go. And I think it's such a symbol, as is the Noodle House, of what these gentlemen are capable of doing. And I know, Martin, you've done so much also. So I just think it's an incredible opportunity for Ojai. And we are lucky that you want to do this for our town, and that you're happy to do it. So thank you. And I really appreciate our Assistant City Attorney, Anderson. Thank you so much for, clearly you put a lot of time and effort and expertise into this contract and really thought clearly. And thank you, Mr. City Manager, also for, this is your expertise. And that I have total faith in your negotiating abilities. And I appreciate what you said, Taylor, about making it more protective for the city, in terms of advertising, control of the bowl, access to city staff. Those are all really important, and I think it's going to be a really wonderful relationship moving forward. So exciting. Can't wait to go.
Okay, so I am ready to support the motion wholeheartedly. I feel very confident because in the motion vote, there's an understanding that will include the changes that followed the motion. But before we vote, I would like to discuss the traffic, the bike valet requirement and the traffic management requirements. I had every good intention to speak to David, where he's hiding back there.
Nice.
Privately, and I haven't managed it, but I would like a better understanding of what is meant by what people are envisioning for bike valet requirement, and emphasize again that what is needed if you really are serious about having your what's the word, your I will say yes, the people that attend these events, if you're serious about them going on bicycle, we need some kind of campaign. And when they arrive, there has to be secure bike parking like other cities have.
For sure.
And so I just want to make sure that we're clear that valet requirement means secure bike parking.
Yeah.
And can you speak to that? And then
We
I'll
had
talk about the car traffic.
come up with a decision to let a local nonprofit, as kind of what we were thinking, run the bike valet, so we kind of outsource it to them. We have not yet established who that is, but it will be a big part of what we're going to come up with in the next few months, for sure.
And then I would like to add that part of the terms of this agreement say that they are required to advertise that bike valet parking will be available as part of the event, so that the community is aware and encouraging people to use their bikes.
We've also talked about potentially, I think it's probably negotiating with the city and talking about, but activating the trolley for longer hours and maybe a shorter run, so we could get people from directly downtown into bigger lots and other parking areas quicker, instead of just I believe there was a shopping trolley that ran right before COVID. That was a short run, something similar to that, where you could do a short run to where the just different parking areas are, which will help congestion in downtown, I think.
We have agreed that we will help facilitate the trolley as well.
A lot of it was, we've had a lot of discussions where David, Martin, and I, we're here, and we want to be open and discuss, any issue that comes up with the city, with us. We want to have a very open relationship. This isn't going to be a locked contract where, like you have to do what's there. I mean, it's going to be an open discussion. We are members of the community. We're going to be held to what we do. So we're here to kind of work together with the city and not just kind of take this contract and run. We're here to be partners with, so it's good for everybody.
I'm not done. I'm not done. So a nonprofit that you could contact and I could help facilitate is the Ojai Valley Green Coalition. Because in the past, we've helped with valet bike parking with events. But this is different, and you may not be able to sustain it through volunteer efforts, because this is, the theater and the bowl both need it. So you may need to budget for some kind of,
For
someone-
sure. And I think, ultimately if we put in the clause where we put 10% over 150 into the Libby Bowl, whatever that fund is, I believe that fund could be used for not only community events and the running of the sound, which we had discussed, but it could potentially just be for other Libby Bowl, projects that would kind of support what we're talking about. So I would say that fund could be very helpful in supporting the nonprofit, because it's going to be a big lift, but
Okay,
I also think it could be fairly lucrative for them as well.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's take a moment to talk about the car traffic generated from people coming into the valley, because there's not a day goes by that there's not some, it's an ongoing conversation and concern, because it's just grown to the point where it's not sustainable, the kind of car traffic. And in case you're not aware, I'm going to be, again, talking to the supervisors about this. We have tried for 8 years to get traffic safety on Creek Road, and the city and the Ojai Valley Inn has tried to contact what are those outfits that when you do a map, directions, they send people
Waze
down. They send people down Creek Road, and I would like to see. I'd like to see a concerted effort from all the hotels, including the El Robar especially, and all, and the Ojai Valley, the Chamber of Commerce, that we direct people away from Creek Road. We can't prevent them, of course, but we can make it, and we have a narrow 2-lane road into the town. And, we have to grapple with that and plan for the future. And what was I going to, I forgot I had a great
I don't think
point.
the traffic that from the shows that we're putting on will be substantially more than what's been in the past. It'll be a little bit, but I think Ojai in general has kind of increased in traffic. And I feel like if in our year review, it's probably going to be one of the things that comes up.
Yeah, but it's not that I'm blaming you.
Yeah.
We've already neglected the problem, and it's blowing up. It's really blowing up.
Yeah.
And I was very alarmed when the El Roblar suggested into directing their guests onto residential streets to avoid them going into the congested downtown. This is exactly what we don't want. We don't want local hotels sending people down residential streets. We have, as a community, we have to grapple with what are we going, because we're at level D sometimes, and you might as well just park your car and walk to where you're going because traffic isn't moving.
I do that.
We have to face it.
Yeah.
Not just you, but I wanted to air.
It's
to-
definitely a
to
bigger.
state that.
It's a bigger discussion. I
It's a
think
bigger
that needs to be
discussion,
had
and I'm
for sure.
sure that the next council will be happy to grapple with it, and I'll be at the podium. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. And I echo all the great things that Mayor Betsy and my colleagues said. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Wait,
Please.
no. Councilmember Rule, if the council is agreeable to the terms of the after $150,000 net, on an annual basis, 10% would go towards the Libby Bowl proposed by Ojai Valley Music. I would ask that you include it amend your motion to have it included.
I amend my motion to have it included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need language or?
Motion understood.
Yes,
okay, thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Francina.
Yes.
Mayor Sticks.
Yes.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Councilmember Rule.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations. Now we will move on to the remainder of public communication. Any? Okay. Nope. Okay. Okay, there's been a request for a break before the tree ordinance. Let's
Are there
take,
any more public comment?
no.
Nothing? Okay.
Okay, we will take a brief break
Yeah, just 3
and
minutes.
we'll be back. Okay, we are back. If everyone could take a seat. And we're going to move on to item number 3. It's a concept review. Request to consider expanding the existing city tree protections under city's tree ordinance. If we could have quiet, please. And we have a staff report?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Lucas Seibert. For the record, I am the Community Development Director here for the City of Ojai. And the item before council tonight for discussion is a concept review for the tree ordinance and discussions on potential revisions, edits. There is no decision being asked for tonight. Instead, what we're looking for is a thoughtful, kind of robust discussion around the current provisions and then potential revisions moving forward, and even actions and next steps. So I guess the question that I should probably start with is, why is this before the City Council tonight? And the response to that is, this has really kind of started in 2022 when staff started working with a local arborist regarding potential revisions or edits. And though some of those pieces were framed around stuff that was happening around the community that we were taking note of and hearing from the community as well. Some of that revolved around haphazard tree trimming practices, and some of those were without the benefit of a permit. So we were involving co-compliance regarding some of those issues. Some of those issues were happening on the weekends as well as trimming of trees by unqualified individuals or those individuals that really don't have the thoughtful consideration for what's going on. And then the third piece is really kind of excessive use from what staff has seen over the last, I would say, 5 years in the term in which I've been here, in determining hazardous or serious state decline of replacement of said trees on private property. And then by doing that, so let me just unpack that just for a minute. When someone comes in for a tree permit and they identify through an arborist report that it's a hazardous tree, and they've made that through a certified arborist, a professional making that recommendation or determination, there's a provision in our code that still requires a permit to be issued, but does not require a fee. And then on top of that, does not require replacement of said tree. So when I had first started here, we would always ask, couldn't require the trees for themselves to be replaced. And I would say probably 90% of the time we were having compliance, meaning people willing to replace that. I would say over the last 2 years that has shifted, and that narrative is no longer, hey, yeah, we'll replace it. And in fact, when we were asking, they would identify even the location. Now they've just simply stated it's not required. End of story. So there's been kind of a shift in the narrative recently in the last 2 years, which has been cause for a little bit of concern, because you're no longer having a tree itself being replaced on a 1-to-1 ratio or whatever scenario that looks like. Instead, it's just you're losing that canopy and you're just not sure if that's going to end up being replaced in the future. So there's uncertainties with that as well. So additionally, through that concept review, staff is looking for direction on the following. We're looking for direction regarding the expansion of the tree protections potentially beyond what's already identified within the code, which is protections for oaks, sycamores, and heritage trees. We're also looking for direction for modifications to tree permit requirements related to potentially construction-related projects, which are typically handled through the tree permit through conditions that are identified within the arborist report, as well as protected tree trimming provisions. Those are limited to potentially oaks, sycamores, and heritage trees. And then protected tree removal, so those trees that are identified as being protected. We're also looking at the discussion of expanding beyond the oaks, sycamores, and heritage trees as well. I think it's identified in the staff report, and there's certainly been some comments that have come in from the community as to the kind of the running intro list of discussion pieces for what's considered to be local trees. And then And then the last thing is tree service contractors, and this is related to the public utility service work impacting protected trees. And that's really revolving once again around the oaks, sycamores, and heritage, whether or not we expand beyond that. And then finally is including a standard and or ratio for replacement of protected trees, and that would be for the oak, sycamores, heritage, or beyond, just those that are identified within the code currently. So in the staff report, there is this educational requirement identified for those workers, and we have kind of an understanding of what our thought process on that. I will have to say that there's some more unpacking to be done with that, but it would be an educational piece, potentially even a test that would be revolved with around that on an annual basis to ensure that they are truly qualified, rather than taking the word of these agencies that they are qualified under their provisions, taking some of that control and identifying it through the city's process. So with that, certainly happy to answer any questions. I know we also have, in considering all of the information and some of the revisions and edits we're talking about here from a staff standpoint, we've also had Jan Scow. We've been working with him for the last couple of years as well. And if he wants to say a couple words as well, he can stand up.
Yes, please. Thank you, Jan.
So it's been quite an adventure. This all started before you guys were seated as the city council. I was hoping to get it finished before you guys left, but I have faith in the new mayor, so maybe this will work.
May I ask when you started?
Say again?
When did you start?
It was actually before the election 2 years ago. So it was in December, maybe November even.
22.
So it was done before this council was seated, and I was like, okay, well, we have to wait for the new council. And then 2 years later, here we are. But hey, progress. You guys have been really busy fighting with each other. So, sorry, no offense, but.
Not all of us. Continue.
Okay. I'm only teasing. I started out, what I did, because I've worked with so many ordinances in Southern California for so many years, I actually understand what a well-written ordinance looks like. And the one that the city of Ojai had was reasonably good, but had a lot of loopholes, things that weren't clear, various other issues. So I really just set out to clean it up, to improve the language, to make it flow better, to make it a little bit stricter. In the last few weeks, we've come up with some new ideas that that we haven't really discussed in very much detail, but I think probably Lucas and Ben have been busy, and I'm aware of these things, and I think that they're all good ideas. They need to be refined before they go into the ordinance. Any questions?
Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe it's Lucas or you. Do you think some of the hesitation that Lucas mentioned of replacing trees is due to fire insurance?
No,
there must
but
be a reason why suddenly people are hesitating.
So I'm really glad you brought that up. I don't know why they're hesitating. Lucas has that history. I don't have that history. The fire insurance issue is something I've been fighting for 3.5 years. I'm very familiar with it. I know all about it. No, I do not think that has anything to do with people not being willing to plant a tree. I think it's not required, and so why would we? I brought to this council a few months ago the opinion that trees are disappearing here, that we're losing our canopy, and we need to do something about it. And that's a reality. So I'm in favor of requiring mitigation for trees that are removed across the board. I think if you make it too strict, you're going to get some kickback, but I think it's important that we be planting new trees. Do you guys hear this mic? Is it going in and out? Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but the insurance question is a whole nother issue. I don't know how to deal with that. It needs to be dealt with, but I'm not sure that the city can deal with it, really. We're working with big insurance companies trying to start a statewide letter writing campaign, various other things to try to make the state stop the insurance companies from doing this, but I'm not sure we're going to make any headway there either.
But that's really important. Thank you.
Yes, it is.
Super important.
Yes.
And, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is for Lucas or Jan or for both, but do you have experience with, so the Lucas mentioned the issue of the person who's got a tree that's hazardous, but it's potentially a protected tree, and they potentially maybe don't have the funds to do what needs to be done. Are you aware of any programs that other communities have used for, how to address that situation so it doesn't sit, unmitigated, and maybe a community fund or something like that that
Yeah,
helps?
that's a really good point. There are people who live with hazardous trees who can't afford to remove them, and it could easily cost $10,000 to remove a large oak tree. That's quite common. I have had clients who've just gone nuts when they realized how much it was going to cost. It's a great idea. I don't know how you would implement that. I think it sounds like a nonprofit. We need another nonprofit in Ojai. So, right? We've only got 27 now. So I think that's a great idea. I don't know how you could codify that. Yeah, I don't know if the city could be a part of that or not. That's for legal counsel probably.
Can I just?
Yeah.
There's potential opportunities to reach out to some of these other cities and see, with them also having tree ordinances in place, seeing if they have practices of that nature. I haven't done that deep dive at this point.
And part of my concern is that so you have a hazardous tree, you have somebody who's financially stressed, and they're probably at the greatest risk of doing a horrible job of mitigating. I think our goal should be that we, especially with respect to oaks, that we do things right to protect and preserve that tree for as long as we can.
So there's a really interesting, hope I'm not just stealing your thunder, Lucas. There's a really interesting thing that happens. And I just ran across this a few weeks ago with a client where they had a tree that and this has happened quite a few times actually over the years, where there's a tree that's kind of what I would call a wobbler. It's a legal term. My lawyer told me that. Where you could spend some money and make the tree safer and maybe not remove it, and that might cost you $6,000 or $7,000, and then in 5 years you would probably have to remove it, and then you would be paying another $10,000. So that's a situation that occurs, and in that situation, normally the tree owner is going to say, "I'm going to remove it," and I don't really blame them. But it doesn't lend itself to preserving trees that could be around for another, 10 or 20 years. So those are really hard things to put into a code, though. And, I use my judgment. I'm sure there's other arborists in town who use their judgment, and hopefully it's all good judgment.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
So we'll have an opportunity to go through, if we want to make comments, go through the staff report after we hear from the public, correct? Okay.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. First, we have William Wyrick, then Larry Steingold, then Andy Gilman.
Jan, I could listen to you all night. So always enjoy listening to Jan. Couple comments, one overarching comment. And I think Jan referred to it in terms of the insurance issue, which really is part of a larger meta issue, and that is that in today's environment, how you manage your tree canopy is not just a ecological question for our urban forest. It's also a housing cost issue, and it's also and mainly and bought exclusively through the insurance aspect, but it also is an issue in terms of what was just discussed, in terms of fixing hazardous conditions for people that don't have the means to do it. So what I would argue is that as part of the process of going through this concept review, that this proposed concept be formally presented to the Fire Safe Council for them to review from the perspective of managing the insurance implications, and possibly try to find somebody else from a housing point of view. The Fire Safe Council is having an insurance seminar of insurance professionals, I believe, sometime in December. And this is an excellent kind of thing. It would be nice to get some feedback in terms of this concept review. So in other words, you need to have a global perspective on this matter, especially now. An idea that it just occurred to me while I was sitting here is that there's a lot of people with a lot of equity in their properties that they may own or that they may be renting, but they don't have a lot of cash. Well, they could be offered something basically where you would put an assessment on the title to the property in order to finance something like a mega expensive 5-figure expensive handling a hazardous tree or proper care of it. And it's just something that's paid when there's a transaction down the road for that property when, in fact, the capital gain is realized. So there's innovative ways of talking about this. And finally, I didn't see any distinction for invasive species. So a mature tree, as I saw it defined here in the concept review, could include putting a non-invasive species on the same position of cost and preservation and protection as an invasive species. I don't think that's the intent. I think there needs to be, for example, certain high-risk invasive species like eucalyptus, and also not invasive species, but nevertheless high fire risk like longleaf pines that are not native to this ecology ought to be looked at in terms of not wanting to put them on the same level as all mature trees in terms of fire risk and invasive species classification per the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next, we have Larry Steingold, then Andy Gilman, then Bill Miley.
Thank you. I'm probably one of your poster childs for tree repair or trimming. 5 years ago, I was probably one of Lucas's first trimming trees. Had a arborist come over, said the tree was hazardous. Turned out could have been, but wasn't, I guess. So we trimmed it. This time the insurance company came over and said, you've got to trim the tree or your insurance is canceled. Well, we trimmed one branch and then they canceled the insurance. So now we're trimming more trees, more branch. Thank you. Just got that approved. And I think if you could waive the fees, because this is an addition, so I'm okay, but going forward for everybody else, waive the fee for any fire removal forced by the insurance companies for at least the next year. Because right now the pressure's on to do all this stuff. And I know the fees, quite honestly, are $250 or $300 per tree, but it would be nice, it's just something to do that. So that's a good thing. And I think the tree removal for fire is a wonderful thing, and it's getting easily done here. The other is regarding a tree committee. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily agree with the report because it says the reason we're not going to have a tree committee is because we have too many vacancies on commissions and can't fill them. I think that's an unfair representation of the community, and I think we could very readily fill a tree commission with people like Mr. Scow or Bill Mellett or other people here who are involved in trees, and you could probably fill a commission in about 30 days here. So to have a tree committee review or talk about appeals or however you want to do it, set it up, we really should have a tree committee because trees are a big deal here. And they can bring in new information and new ideas and take some of the burden off the city council and advise you on what trees or what have you on a constant basis. So I would definitely have a tree committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Andy Gilman, then Bill Miley, then Anita Cram.
Thank you, Council. Small point. December 8th is the Fire Safe Council event, which is at the Ojai retreat from 2 to 4. And so I had the main question I had with this proposal was what to do when you have a situation where the insurance company tells you to remove a tree from which this ordinance would prohibit, for example. But I think there's going to be a lot of work over the next year that's going to happen on this front. And I know like Kit in the audience is working on a lengthy article on this subject. So it might be that this passes with the kind of caveats you're talking about. I do like the training component or the testing component. That seems very good to me too, with the city administering that. It's possible that the fire piece is a separate track. We know that it's going to be developed, but not to stop this in lieu of that, because I think it's going to develop. Small point. But I think we'll see a lot maybe in the next 6 months. Thank you.
Andy, could you repeat what you just said about December 8th, the Fire Safe Council's meeting at the Ojai retreat?
Yeah, it's the event that Bill Wyrick was just mentioning. So they are hosting an event at the Ojai retreat from 2 to 4 p.m.
2 to 4.
And that is, they have, I believe, 4 insurance people from the county and possibly the state talking about all of our home insurance going up or being canceled. So it's the beginning of many conversations.
Yeah, because if you may I,
Mm-hmm.
because we've had many queries from residents,
Mm-hmm.
so I'd like to point them to attend that meeting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
their website has that listing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next we have Bill Miley, then Anita Cram, then Casey Abbott.
Hello. I'm assuming this is your last official meeting, but I would have preferred on the last or this meeting that a 25 mile per hour speed limit draft ordinance to be presented instead of an update on the tree ordinance. However, it would be in recognition of the effort and heart Council Member Souza has given over the years to get this. So thank you, Sid.
Thank you.
But trees are important too. What I find missing in the draft is protection and nurturing for baby protected trees. Those under 4 inches in diameter, 4.5 feet up. Obviously, a 4-inch diameter tree trunk or trunk tree has to grow from a seed to a seedling to a sapling, which may take years for an oak tree. Becoming a mature tree only happens when they start producing fruits and flowers. Oak trees can take 40 years for that to happen. They can be mature in 300 years. And then, I like this part, and they become ancients for another 300 years. And that's what I'm looking for myself. And see my reference that I put there, woodlandtrust.org. So I have a couple of suggestions. It would be best to have a new section on care for seedlings and saplings of protected trees, which will guarantee mature trees will exist for us in the future to protect, trim, water, and enjoy. Please notice, or maybe you have, on the way to Santa Maria on Highway 101, lots of very mature and ancient trees. Few little ones, as cattle seem to eat them as they sprout. Planting acorns, as some youth groups are doing, is great, and adults planting and nurturing trees. Ojai trees is a good example. So please create an ordinance section and an educational effort for caring for tree babies, toddlers, and pre and teenage trees. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have Anita Cram, then Casey Abbott.
Good evening. I want to thank City Council staff for bringing this up and updating this. I think it's really important. A few points. I really like the part about excavation encroachment on tree roots and the ability of trees to survive in the face of increased development in our valley.
I really think I'll bring up again, I believe that the city needs to contract with a well-reputed arborist and not rely on other sources, that they need to have confidence in the person who does it and that be someone that reports to them. Also, I strongly agree with what Bill Miley says about new generations of trees. People tend to just pull up acorns to cut smaller ones. They're not protected, but I am really concerned about the future generations of trees for our valley. We know oak trees fall for a lot of reasons: rain, drought. We're going to lose oak trees, and we're going to lose big ones. So we need to really explicitly put protection for some young ones. At the cottages, we have a lot of encroachment on trees, and the arborist report is from 2010. The trees have grown. There are trees that nobody cared about back then because they were considered expendable that now are adult, mature, large trees. How do we consider those as well? That area is, as even the reports from the developers for that area state, that there is a near continuous canopy of trees that goes from cottages to Mallory Way to the Los Padres National Forest. And I really hope that the city will take seriously that forest of woodland habitat. Another thing I'd like to bring up is Measure C, that the voters thought there was going to be a commitment of money to tree care. And how do we get that to happen? That money that should have been taxpayer dollars that we voted for to go to trees, how do we make that happen? That money is allocated to tree care. And I like Bill Wyrick's point about invasive trees, and especially those that are fire hazards, that maybe needs to be considered as well, that we exclude some of these mature trees that really are detrimental, even though they might be in good health. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Next, we have Casey Abbott.
Good evening, Casey Abbott, former owner of Hollywood Honeybees and Orchard Management. I used to do a lot of tree work. One thing I would like to suggest is that you do establish that certified arborist wording has been used, but I would like to see who is certifying them. And I would strongly recommend that was the International Society of Arboriculture, the ISA. There are arborists who have self-certified, and where is their documentation? They have it, and it's not published anywhere that we know of. We don't see them showing up at arborist recertification meetings or any other conventions. That's just one aspect. Another thing that your concerns for certain species of trees, you ought to look very carefully into all the native trees in this area. To lose a madrone, for instance, which are fairly rare, even though they are native to this area, it would kind of be tragic. They need to be in stands where their seeds and flowers can be cross-pollinated. Another thing, we're losing a lot of large oaks and sycamores down like at Camp Comfort. And the reason is that there's ground squirrels digging underneath this main scaffold roots. A heavy rain comes, the tree leans over. And another heavy one comes and it goes down. And sometimes it leans over enough that if it's balanced horribly on that side and has never been maintained, well, it'll crack a major limb off and the tree dies soon after that. So managing those ground squirrels should be an ongoing battle to maintain these things. If one is in soft ground right after a heavy rain and is leaning, it should be braced and sent back towards straight. You might even have to soak the ground further to soften the ground enough to do so, and put a cable on the other side and several anchors and give it a pretty good tug with a gentle wrap around where the tree side of the pulling system would be tightened up from. But anyways, those are just some suggestions, and I'll double down on the idea that a tree committee, I'd be willing to apply to become on that committee and help with it, with any suggestions. I got out of tree service because my knees told me it was time to stop climbing. But got into it thoroughly. I studied under Dr. Jim Downer, who occasionally taught at Ventura College. You're not going to find a better source around than him. But anyways, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Casey. Any comments online?
No raised hands currently, Mayor, but we do have some Zoom participants. We'll give you the opportunity to raise your hand for item 3 on our agenda. give you a last call here, Zoom participants, before we move on. And let's move on, Mayor.
Okay, we will move on to discussion. Who would like to begin? And
I would.
Councilmember Lang, anytime you're ready.
Anytime I'm ready to
Well,
speak.
I want to make sure we include
Thank
you.
Thank you. I'm not
But-
my best self tonight.
Okay, you don't have to start. Who would like to begin? Do you want to begin or?
Yeah, I can actually. Yeah. So actually, Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Whitman brought up the question. One of the questions I had too, which was, when we had all the rain, I think it was last year, or I can't remember if it was 22 or 23. We had all the rain, and we lost a number of oaks, as many of you know. And one of the challenges that we had was that oaks in my district, there was one incident of an oak tree falling on a neighbor's house, and so two houses were affected by one tree. And in looking at deeper into that scenario, one of the concerns was that that with people being on fixed incomes or not having extra cash flow, that working with an arborist or trimming their trees wasn't possible. So I actually think that Bill Wyrick's suggestion for looking at ways that we could help residents, help them afford to really care for their trees, the hazardous ones. I think that's something that I would like to include as well, in having staff, continue to research how best to bring forward, make these recommended changes, and then bring an ordinance forward for our consideration. And I want to hear what everyone else has to say. I also agree with the protection for baby trees, for native baby trees, in particular our heritage oaks, and supporting that new generation of trees. And I know that there is going to, I am aware that we started talking about trees and trees within city trees, and working with crew or working with Ojai trees. And I think that's a separate conversation from this. But I think this is part of that umbrella topic of let's see what we can do to improve our canopy. So I want to hear what everybody else has to say. So I'm going to.
Thank you, Councilmember Lang. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. So Lucas expressed a lot of my reasons for wanting to see this come forward. I've seen a lot of butchered oak trees just within a couple of blocks of my house that I can't imagine that anybody who knew what they were doing could possibly do what was done to these trees. And a lot of times, actually a couple of these trees, they must have been at least 150 years old to have reached the size that they were. So it's all long, it's a long time to recover from bad tree service. So I really like the idea of having a mandatory annual renewal of some type of certification that you pass for understanding how to work on oak trees. And I'd also like to see us look at fines for a failure of a tree service to comply, and maybe a separate kind of a fine for a homeowner who may, I don't want to penalize them, kind of the same way if a homeowner is truly negligent or truly ignorant of what our requirements are. I wouldn't want to be too punitive with them, but I don't, if we've got a frequent violator of the tree permit process, for profit, I would like to see us become progressively more punitive. I think we should look at within this at a program that would allow a homeowner to do trimming of the tree as long as they were doing it in under the supervision of a arborist or arborist report. I mean, I wouldn't want to preclude a homeowner from cutting a 6-inch branch because of our ordinance. If an arborist says they're able to safely do this themselves, then they shouldn't have to incur the expense of a tree service to do that. I really like the thought that Anita Cram brought up, and I would expand it. And so that thought is that we should have a city arborist or somebody who's responsible for, on behalf of the city and the community, looking at, a development-based arborist reports and, giving a review, like if we had a city engineer reviewing plans coming through. I think that position could also potentially address that issue that Councilmember Lang and I have brought up with somebody who's got the horrible tree problem and is trying to figure out, how do I address this? And let's see. I think so. I heard two messages. I'm not sure if everybody heard that there were two messages, but Mr. Wyrick talked about, the push by the insurance industry to cut down trees that they perceive to be a hazard. I think what Mr. Scow mentioned was that there is some substantial misinformation that's tied in with what insurance companies are requiring. And I would like to see us invest in, whether it's through research or whatever, but developing the library of information that supports, and I've been talking about this issue for a few months now, and this is a statement that I've heard repeatedly. Oak trees do not burn down houses. Houses burn down oak trees. Oak trees are actually providing a deterrent to wildfire. And so the protection of that canopy that we've talked about is really important. When you think about that fire that just happened, I'll screw up the name of it, but I probably have about a minute left. Can I finish?
Yeah, may he have more time? I would like to give him to
Council can decide that by consensus.
Yeah.
A minute more?
Yes, yes, or whatever.
So,
It's very good. Yeah.
So, that fire was windblown fires. The embers kind of blew across this valley and into the Camarillo Heights neighborhood. And what seems apparent is that the oak tree canopy is actually a deterrent to blowing embers into these homes and starting fires. So we really need to be looking at being proactive. I'd like to help with convincing the insurance industry that they're being too aggressive about cutting back trees. I know that the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, which is a native plants specialist, is working on this specific issue about the oak tree and oak tree as a deterrent to wildfire. And they've actually, Santa Barbara was addressing this.
It's okay, finish.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think this is so important.
How about we finish your sentence?
Yeah, Santa Barbara has addressed a street where they have these ancient Italian pines. They're massive and they're perceived to be a huge fire hazard. And it went through their commission process, and what they came back with is we should remove these trees, and they looked at what trees should be planted instead. from a fire safety perspective, and they said plant coastal live oaks. And so, you know, we should be, I would like to see City of Ojai, we kind of have a history of being the defender of oak trees. I'd like to see us get at the forefront of pushing out that communication that says, hey, you know, oak trees, let's not cut them back too severely, because we need to protect their health. And, you know, I'd love to see us come up with the proper buffer between tree and residents based upon, you know, both fire and arborist type of science.
Okay. Councilmember Rule?
Yeah. So what occurs to me is this is not. I would like to see a tree committee put together. I think that there is an immense amount of institutional knowledge about the history of the trees here, institutional knowledge about the balance between, you know, fire hardening and trees. I just don't see any kind of educational component really happening unless you have a concerted effort to do so. And I think a concerted effort to do so would mean a committee. So, you know, it's just a huge education for people. And once you have a committee, you can actually have findings and you can actually present them to insurance companies or whomever might be then able to present them to insurance companies or whomever. In other words, it's going to require something that is semi-official findings. We have a lot of people who are tree experts. I would say give it 60 days. See if we can put a committee of experts together who would be willing to really, you know, put their intelligence and their knowledge and their, you know, everything that they know together. And figure out what needs to be done. I don't think that the city has the resources to do that. I don't think the city has the knowledge to do that. I don't think hiring an arborist is going to result in that. We need a large-scale educational component that we can then put out to the rest of the community. So, and I think as Mr. Wyrick mentioned, you know, the Fire Safe Council is working on this. Where's the overlap? Well, we don't really know, but that could be a charge of the committee. There could be ad hoc members of that committee who would, you know, take on the overlap or the Venn diagram between fire hardening and, you know, tree maintenance and tree, you know, saving the trees. And I think also the financial aspect of it. You know, perhaps there are people that know how to, you know, get some sort of home equity loan or something put onto a mortgage. Maybe Dale, you know, she loves trees too. So it's such a complex problem that I think we need to have a tree committee. And if it's 60 days we don't have it, then we don't have it. But I think we would have it. We will have it. And I would just hate to see all of the knowledge that we have here not be put to use in a collective wisdom kind of way. I agree with what everyone is saying. I'm just trying to think, how do we move this forward and out into the community? We know this, we hear this, we've been thinking about this, some of us have been doing it for a very long time. So I am in support of a committee, actually, to take this on and branch out as they see fit.
So
Councilmember Francina.
I think we could put together a tree committee in 3 days because Kathy Nolan, Karen Bolson, and perhaps Jan Scola would be willing.
Mr. Clifford.
Yeah, Garrett. You know, we can. You know, we know the three people. You know, we can put it together. If we, I think everything that's been the advice we've received from the public and from my colleagues, I wholeheartedly support it. And I have comments, but I want to ask for clarification on the homeowner trimming the oak tree themselves. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that. Because I don't think the arborist just comes for free and tells you how. I mean, I think there's more. Could Jan comment on that? Because I don't know that that's a good.
Sure. So I
idea.
have two comments on that. First of all, to get an arborist to come and give you a report to trim a tree does cost a fair amount of money. I can attest to that because that's what I do. The other thing is there's a liability issue. If the city is actually saying anything at all about a person pruning their own tree, you just opened a big door to some potential liability. So that would be my concerns. But it's a great idea. I love altruism. You know, if we can figure out a way to save people money, and yeah, for sure.
So tonight we're not going to be making a motion. We're going through this.
We're giving staff direction on what we want them to do.
And staff has been taking notes and hearing what we, that we mostly approve of what's been recommended. So we received from Kathy Nolan, and the city manager has a copy, and I could go through it. I don't know if you all have received this. If not, we can surely have it distributed. She not only provided a public comment, but she provided comments right on the document. And should I go through
Well,
it?
I would say no, because we communicated with Jan.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jan.
yeah.
And Jan said that these are items for a future date down the road. Don't necessarily pertain to tonight, though. Is that correct? Okay.
The in red in the okay, and so you have a I just want to make sure that the full council has a copy. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me see if there's anything else. If I had my druthers, we'd probably just protect every tree. I want to bring up. No. Seriously, we would use common sense. But for example, I tried to save the pine trees at the Humane Society when they were expanding their building, okay? And I was told, it was called to my attention, and I went to the director at the time and talked to the architect, Mark Whitman, and was told that these pine trees, remember that all trees are habitat, okay? When the eucalyptus trees were removed at the Land Conservancy, I got a call from one of the wildlife rehab people that people were bringing all these dying baby squirrels to her, even though it had gone through the proper channels, the permitting and all that. We don't know everything. We have to do this with awareness that when we remove a tree, there's multiple impacts on the environment. And we're such an enlightened city, we should be able to, consider that. Remember, maybe squirrels do damage, but they're the ones planting the oak trees, right? With the let's hear it for the squirrels, for the good that they do. So, we're already aware that we don't do certain things during nesting season. That should be understood. And then there's what's that supporting document that's in Kathy's? Oh, under the baby trees. Where's that? I don't know. There's a supporting document that you must know what it is, right? Oh, here. Okay. I will read what I sent Kathy Nolan, Bill Miley's comments, and here it's just one paragraph, so I'll read it. This is from Kathy Nolan, who's a former planning commissioner and a landscape architect, and she's on the board of the Green Coalition, and her expertise in this area, especially now that she's not on the planning commission, would be very valuable. Can I have a minute?
One more minute.
Okay. Regarding Bill Miley's comments about protecting age diversity of oaks and specifically seedlings and saplings of various ages, this is generally expressed, though not as specific as Bill's request, in the Community Forest Management Plan, a supporting document for the tree ordinance. And she writes, if I suppose if the seedling protection was to be included in the, the strengthening of the ordinance, it would fall under, for example, education, maintenance, and maintaining an age-diverse citywide tree canopy, including the native oaks. So that's my comment. And then the other problem that we have is Southern California Edison. And we have contacted them. They do butcher. I'm constantly hearing valley-wide complaints about the butchering they do. And so somehow we have to have a continual dialogue that they've become a hazard to our city, to our valley. I mean, I don't know the process, but it's an issue.
Mr. City Manager, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so right, the city does have some leverage. It's more limited because they are under CPUC control, and they do have right of way and so forth. But when they're on private property, for sure, we have some leverage. But when they're clearing their right of way, those are tariffs that they're trying to adhere to, and that's a little more challenging.
And I just have a comment, and this is maybe like a public service comment, but if a contractor sent by Edison is out there saying, well, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, and you don't think they're giving proper treatment to the tree, Edison actually has like a liaison person to address oak trees, and you need to make a call to that person. And then if that person doesn't, work out something to your satisfaction, potentially bring it to the city. But that's a first step, because if you let a contractor, come in and doesn't know what they're doing, then you're going to have a, problem. You got to get to that liaison. And I've heard that liaison is, fairly good about working out solutions. Jan might be able to comment more on that.
I worked for the city of Malibu as Malibu's representative with Edison. Malibu's made up of lawyers and famous rich people. They're a lot more powerful than we are. They're bigger. It'd be nice if you guys could actually get Edison to pay you to have your arborist, not me, but your arborist go be that in-between person, but probably won't happen. I wanted to say something in regards to the whole idea of protecting baby trees. There is a solution to that. Thousand Oaks, for instance, protects all trees 1 inch in diameter and bigger, all oak trees. So you could theoretically change the ordinance down from 8 inches to something smaller. I don't know if that's practical, but it's a possibility.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Well, first, I would like to thank Jan for your patience and endurance and loving trees so much. And I appreciate all the comments from the public and from the council members. And it is complicated, and yet I think in some ways it's quite simple, because we all love trees, and we are a city of trees. And if you walk or bike or hike in Ojai, clearly that's so much of our essence and our nature and our spirit. So I really appreciate all the efforts and the insightful comments to take care of the trees. And of course, we know that we live in the fastest heating county in the continental U.S. It's gone up 4.7 degrees. And planting trees and taking care of our trees is one thing we actually can do to do something to either keep the temperature from increasing or potentially even lowering it. And if you drive around specific neighborhoods in Ojai, you can see where trees have been cut down when the development happened years ago, and when they've been protected. And it makes such a huge difference. So I think we need to shift the narrative a little bit and really see each tree as an entity and important in itself. And I agree with Bill Wyrick's comment about the invasive species, the eucalyptus, the Mexican palm, the Italian cypress, all go up like matchsticks. So we do need to take care of that and replace them with the oak trees, which, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, are a deterrent to fire. So that's a huge boon. And also thank you to Mr. Miley for bringing up the babies and the teenagers and the toddlers. Everybody, let's get everybody in there and take care of them. Thank you, Anita Cram, for the comment about the excavation and the encroachment, and that we really do need an arborist report anytime there's any kind of development happening. And I like the idea of the mandatory annual certification of the oak trees. I think Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that. And having an arborist review everything. So thank you very much to our Community Development Director for taking such diligent notes. I can see your notebook filling up. And thank you to our Assistant City Attorney for listening. And I mean, I think this is a great example of bringing a concept forward, getting feedback from the public and the council, and then moving forward. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
yep.
just one final comment, and Larry, you can leave. No, it's a joke. I mean, I don't ever get to make jokes, and I'm just a joker. But what I was going to say is, and you'll get this, we might want to consider if there is any overlap or play with our rights of nature that protects trees. I don't know if there is. I don't know how it would play out. But if it is, and if it does, perhaps we could, and I'd be happy to brainstorm, and I'm sure Councilmember Lang would too, to see if there is anything relevant to that to either bolster the trees or the rights of nature ordinance that we recently passed. And Larry, now you know why I said that you could like hop on out. Anyway, that would be that. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember.
My question is, I am in favor of at least exploring whether we should have a city arborist, because if we're really, really serious about our tree canopy and doing all the things we aspire to, it seems like that's necessary. Can we make a motion for that now, or is that a future agenda?
If I could just jump in, council member, that's good feedback, and thank you. And with all the ambitious plans, it's highly likely that we might have to increase that staffing significantly. So that's under advisement for sure already.
Okay, and so that brings me to the other point about the Measure C funds. At the last council meeting or the previous one, we had an impossible decision to make between funding trees and a motorcycle traffic enforcement cop. And so that money is still sitting there. It has not been, the next council will have to decide how to spend it. But I think whatever decision they make, that we have to find is there Measure C funding. All of this can be the next meeting.
Well, no, not the next meeting. I wouldn't suggest that. What I would really suggest, the city council is going to embark upon a goal setting exercise in February, and that would really be the time to establish what the city council would like the city to be spending its money upon. And it seems like, a tree goal on its own would be recommended with some priorities or strategies that really wrap up with that. And we could get very granular as far as what we'd like to see with Measure C funds. And you can certainly come down and speak at the podium about what you would want them to do.
Yeah. So hopefully what you want will still transpire. What we all want.
Go trees. Yes, I think we're all in agreement. Go trees.
What was my other? I had another. Oh God, my mind. I can't remember my other question, but I can.
We'll come back, and I would envision, and I haven't talked to these two about it, but a part two of the concept review, because we're rolling over to a new council. So I would envision us continuing this discussion. I don't see us being able, by any stretch, being able to come back with a ordinance yet. So, but we got some really good feedback, and so we can flesh out some sections and continue the conversation then.
Okay, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of things that we can report back to the council, what a tree committee would look like, what the
tree committee was what I wanted to.
There's Brown Act implications if y'all create the body, right? And then we've heard a lot of things about a potential program for helping our low income neighbors. So giving staff and my office the space to be able to flesh these things out and bring you some answers, I think would be more productive than bringing an ordinance forward.
So I'd like to comment on that kind of generally. I think Lucas alluded to this. So we have some big ideas related to the committee and different programs we might have, but we also have some very specific kind of enforcement, to tighten up. I'd love to see us kind of, maybe bifurcate at the discretion of staff where we don't have to do this all at once, like in one meeting, approve everything. I would love to see us get back here relatively quickly on some of these more specific regulation of trees and the people who trim them.
Especially the replacement.
Yeah, I mean, that's potential. I mean, at staff's discretion, what can we move through fairly quickly, and what can we do more that's a bigger picture stuff, like the committee and the funding of.
You're looking for us to identify the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
Replacement is part of that. Yeah. That's, yeah. Yeah.
If anyone wants baby oak trees, give me a call.
Okay.
Maybe,
All right.
Would you like to make a motion maybe to that effect?
No motion.
No motion? We're good?
Well,
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you for your comments, and we thank you for your note taking. Okay. Well, we are ready to move on to council member reports. Does
Can we find our notes? Okay.
anyone have anything to report out?
I do.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes, unless Councilwoman Francina, were you wanting to go? Okay, I'll go. So I serve on the board for the Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura. And I just wanted to let everyone know that if you were affected by the mountain fire at all, either because you have a business and roads were closed or air or anything like that, for businesses, there are some opportunities for disaster loans or relief. And you can check out the EDC website and you can get more information. And one other thing that came from that is that there are new fire maps that are out right now too. So there's just a whole lot that we're trying to stay on top of with that agency to help our small business owners manage some of the effects of climate change and this and the natural disasters that we will be facing.
Thank you, Councilmember Lang. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Councilmember Francina.
So last Thursday, the Ventura County Animal Commission met, Animal Services Commission met with the new director, Esteban Rodriguez. It was a fairly productive meeting, and I'll continue attending quarterly, and hopefully whoever is the new liaison, we can ride together. So you're going to be picking your liaisons. No, but that happens December 10th, right?
Through the mayor? That's scheduled for our January 28th meeting, first meeting of the new year.
January 28th. Okay, I thought it was the 10th. That's good to know. Thank you. God, I'm like a crazy person, my notes. I know. Can I announce that on December 2nd at the Ojai retreat, there will be already, there's already a lot of people signed up to attend. It is a forum with our city manager, our mayor, presumed mayor-elect Andy Gilman, and Matt Levere from the county, and the title is The City and the Valley of Ojai, Understanding the Relationship with the County. And I'll be attending. I know there's about 50 other people already signed up to attend, and you might have to move it to a larger venue. But I think it's a very good opportunity for the public to have a better understanding, because we're a city, and then we have the valley-wide areas that are really under the county jurisdiction, and so that's a good opportunity, and it's another opportunity to get Matt Levere to do something about Creek Road, and so we're going to take advantage of that.
Everything else.
And everything else, everything else, and I have a whole long list of I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'm just changing spots. And our wonderful city manager has assured me that he'll continue working with me, so I'm very happy about that. That's all I have, because I can wait till the next meeting.
Well, I would just like to encourage everyone to go to the Ojai Playhouse if you haven't been yet. It opened last weekend and it is incredible. What a gift to the community. Thank you to David Berger for working so diligently, and the attention to detail is amazing. So really exciting. So please go and support it. Anyone else?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and as I mentioned to David, really the best movie theater popcorn I've ever had. And he pointed out no butter, and it was like it did not need it. It was so freaking good. So anyway, I would say he knows how to make popcorn. He said he was born to make popcorn, and I said I was born to eat popcorn. So we got along very well on that. I took a tour of the Matilaha Dam, the dam. It's been a work in progress to get that dam pulled down for almost 30 years. It's failing. And so I would like to start thinking about how we might support moving that project forward, what the city can possibly do. Lindy Palmer's husband, Jeff Palmer, is now the director of the watershed for Public Works. So he used to be assistant director for Highway. He's now working on the watershed, and he seems to be very committed. It's very complicated because the levees are all failing down, and there's ways that you can bring it down so that everything that's backed up behind it doesn't cause dramatic problems. But I just want to point out that every time I hear a SpaceX boom, they use the wrong concrete, right? So when they built it, they used the cheap concrete they weren't supposed to, so they cut some corners, and the dam is cracking, right? And it's only a matter of time. And every time this SpaceX goes off and it shakes my house, I'm like, or an earthquake, that dam is going to go down and it's not going to be a controlled breach anymore, and it's going to be devastating to the valley. So I was very taken by everybody who was there. The surf rider guy, I can't remember his name, but he's been working on it for 30 years, and it does seem like that Jeff Palmer's finally, there's somebody there who's not old school engineer. And I was very heartened. It's a beautiful, beautiful location. People have deep memories about the pool that used to be there. So it is embedded in people's sense of what Ojai and the Ojai Valley is. So that might also be part of the discussion, because if that goes, we're all one valley. Because what's going to happen is all of that stuff is going to spread throughout the entire valley. It's going to go into Lake Casitas. It's going to follow. So, I think it's a huge discussion to have, and the dam is failing. And Jeff Palmer acknowledged that. And either we do it or nature's going to do it. So, but it was very heartening because of the Klamath Dam coming down, and it was within months that the salmon had returned. Now that was a hydroelectric, dam, so they had private ability to do that. I don't want to go on too much, but it really was quite wonderful to be there, and quite wonderful to hear this, and quite wonderful to know that some guy's been working on this for 30 years, and he continues to work on it, and he might actually have an ally now in a position of governmental position that can actually help him. So I thought that was just so great.
Are you talking about Paul Jenkin?
I think I am.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you are.
Sorry.
He's been working on it
for 30 years.
30
yeah,
years,
he was
yeah.
there,
Yeah,
when
no,
he
he's
and Jeff were
fantastic, yeah.
talking, and the crew was there, and all of that. So, and finally, the Humane Society over here in Bryant also has a new director.
Oh,
So just wanted to let you guys know that. He's from the Boys and Girls Club, so we're all hopeful for that.
Okay, let's
May
move.
I-
Well,
Can I follow
is
up?
this on
Sorry
council?
for my long thing.
We're still on council member reports?
Yeah.
Is that what you
well,
want to
I
add
want
to?
to comment on Leslie. I want to verify about the 30 years, because in the year 2000, when I was the rotating mayor, the city manager and I went on a similar tour that you had and the Secretary of the Interior, as I recall, helicoptered in. So it takes a long time, but it's got to happen. And so, yeah. Thank you for that report.
Okay, city manager report.
Wait, I think you left out
Okay.
the.
Yeah, I got
Okay, oh,
I'm going to
sorry.
make a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
So I did a tour of the base of the dam as I think a 15-year-old, about 50 years ago. And it is kind of an awesome thing to see, you know, from that angle especially. But I think everybody should be aware that if you've been on that bridge that crosses Santa Ana, you know, in the river, I mean, they raise that many feet in anticipation of the water that they're going to let loose from the dam eventually. It's my understanding. That was my comment.
Mr.
Larry?
City Manager?
Sure. Did you want to go through your report out, or do you not have any?
I just go to the theater.
Okay, got it. Sorry, you said that. All right. Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Go to the Playhouse. Sorry.
I don't normally have a report out, but I do have a couple items, holiday updates. So just as a reminder, City Hall is going to be closed on both Thanksgiving Day, which is Thursday, and Friday. We're also going to be closed, and this is a new thing. We're going to be closed to the public on the week of Christmas from Monday, December 23rd to Friday, December 27th. Now, we're going to, of course, have public safety working 24/7, as always, and we will have a skeleton crew of public works maintenance staff and essential workers in case there's any emergencies or maintenance issues. But that's a new thing this year. We'll put that out in a post so people are aware. Recreation will be also closed during this time period that I mentioned, Thanksgiving and the so-called Christmas week, but they're going to be completing renovations during that time, and that's what's going to be going on over there. And we'll inform the public more, but I just want to announce that here to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any future agenda items? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. Eventually, we're going to have a discussion about how the city of Ojai responds to the rattle we're getting from SpaceX.
Yeah.
And Matt and Taylor, I believe, have already kind of started working on that, and we're going to see what our options are in terms of, do we have a remedy?
Larry looks like Larry has to say something.
In regard to, seriously, in regard to SpaceX, because they are a business, if they were a business next door putting pesticides over here, there'd be a ability to do something, correct? If they were a trucking company coming through town, we could do something, correct? Because that's what they did. It's a business. They're renting space next door. This is not the U.S. government. If it was the U.S. government.
Do respect. This really is a future agenda.
Okay.
No, I understand.
We will.
Is there anything that we can do to get
Again,
there will be time.
Future agenda.
We will talk about it. But thank you for caring, Larry.
And remember, you can always
okay.
come and
Any other comments? Thank you all for a productive meeting, and we're adjourned.